So this has been all over the internet today that Bob Iger did an interview about a bunch of things. He talked about ESPN and the acquisition of Fox and different things with the networks, as well as some Star Wars stuff. And one of the things that he has taken credit or blame, however you want to distribute that thread, is pretty interesting. So this article on Gizmodo, so it's Trash Cheer website, we have by a James Whitbrook. Let's see what James has to say. So let's see what his interpretation of some of this stuff is. And Star Wars movies under Disney's purview have ranged from excellent expansions to the franchise, no, to perfectly fine. Opinions may vary. Of course, opinions are they're not varied. They're one extreme or the other. There's very little in between. There's a couple of opinions. There's the minority opinion that these movies are good, and there's the ever-growing majority opinion that they're horrible. But there hasn't really been a generally poorly received one, except Solo, which lost money. Or didn't you not get that memo? There has been quite a lot of them. 4 is not really quite a lot. It's a few. It's just that previously we only really had 6, and it took, 6 years to get each of the trilogies. So with even more on the way. Yeah, we know that. There's been several trilogies and other things announced, and we haven't heard anything for a while. But Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger says that maybe we can start to expect them to spread out going forward. Maybe take some time to write some good scripts there, Bob. Maybe that might be a good idea. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter in a wide-ranging interview, and it is wide-ranging, covering everything from Disney's upcoming streaming service, which I don't think is going to do well, to what the acquisition of Fox means for Marvel's movieverse going forward. It means more SJW nonsense. Have you seen the Captain Marvel trailer? Iger said that the current state of the Star Wars movie, the Star Wars rate of one Star Wars movie a year is a bit too much for a franchise that had lain dormant at the box office for almost a decade. No, not really. It would seem that after Episode 9 hits theaters next year, fans will be waiting a bit to see more from the galaxy far, far away. Which, there's some truth to that. Too much of a good thing. But Marvel, what's the way Marvel has been able to do multiple movies in a year is there's various characters and different backgrounds and different story threads that are going along. You could do the same thing in Star Wars. We don't have to have retreads of the original trilogy again and again and again. Give us some other stories. It's a huge galaxy. It's a galaxy far, far away. It's not a solar system. Anyway, I digress. So let's see what Bob is at least taking credit for, or blame, or whatever you want. I made the timing decision. As I look back, I think the mistake that I made, I take the blame, was a little too much too fast. Yeah, the reason, there was an article that came out when they, I guess it was around the time of the Force Awakens, or maybe perhaps afterwards, that showed the breakdown that Disney has got 10 years to recoup their investment. They borrowed money, and with the interest rate and with things, going downhill, they have 10 years. And this is part of why there was so much. We had the Rebels TV show, and we had, there's now a Rebellion or whatever, the Resistance, that's what it's called. Anyway, that's an interesting trailer. Topic for another day. So you can expect some slowdown, but that doesn't mean we're not going to make films. Well, no kidding. J.J. Abrams is busy making Episode 9. We have creative entities, including Game of Thrones directors. So we have Benioff and Wise, and who are developing sagas of their own. That's great, Bob. And the buck stops here. I thought Roundhead Ruin Johnson had a trilogy too. How come you didn't mention him? And what's Kathleen doing? It's interesting that, this was one of the rumors about Solo and its timing and its release, that it was Disney that insisted that when it released when it did in May. So because they didn't want it in the fall interfering with Mary Poppins, which I've seen a few teaser trailers. I'm hopeful, but I'm really thinking they're going to screw that character up. This is perhaps likely down to the fact that the most recent release, Solo, merely did at the box. What? No, it wasn't a flop. What measure? What's this guy's name again? James. What measure of success are you using? A movie that has been admittedly lost a minimum of $80 million. First Star Wars, but granted, it's no major flop where they're moving hundreds of millions of dollars or something, but for a Star Wars movie, that's bad. The other thing that's not mentioned in any of these articles are the toys. The toys from The Force Awakens. So the movie came out 2.5 years ago now, almost 3. There are toys that has still not sold. You are seeing stuff in bargain marks. Go watch Jeff World Class Bullshitters videos on. He's been making videos about the toys for over a year, and he just recently did another one where he went to like the bargain basement places, and he's still finding toys that from the first wave of stuff before the movie came out. No one wants Rey. No one wants the lightsaber builders. It's insane what you can buy for a handful of dollars. I mean, you can take $100 to all these bargain mart. He went to one about 1.5 miles from my house last weekend, and I had to go over and take a look. But anyways, but it's also a good idea because it will hopefully allow for more varied Star Wars material to be made. It would be nice. They had a chance. Now, Rogue One was like a glimmer of hope. Now, Disney screwed that movie up. I still want to see Gareth Edwards' original movie because you can tell the Disneyfication of many scenes, and they reshot over 40% of it. They reshot perhaps more than 50% of Solo. Kathleen Kennedy has fired multiple directors. None of that's mentioned in here, which is pretty interesting. Ever with books, TV shows, and comics fleshing out the universe. We had books and comics that fleshed out the universe, and Disney flushed it all. Why did they flush it all? Because they couldn't make nearly as much money off of it as giving us new stuff. Now, they did get some of the old EU writers, and there are some decent books and things in there, but nothing like the originals. And those other ones were written over years and with a lot of love and attention. And, they ought to just make the Thrawn trilogy and do that kind of, just bite the bullet, Disney, and get your head out of your rear end. But they've got to own everything. So part of this, so Iger says nothing really at the end of the day. He doesn't really say much, and he's not really taking too much blame for anything here. He's just kind of deflecting some of the negativity. Again, this is kind of like, well, we're franchise fatigue, and the real blame is not out here. Iger could have easily said, yeah, we went too fast, we didn't develop our stories well enough. And that would be making admitting a mistake. The mistake that they're admitting here is they're going too quickly. So we're getting this excuse of franchise fatigue, which is baloney. Paramount did the same thing with Star Trek back in the day, and they tried to reboot. And I know the movies have made money, but they're garbage. They're not Star Trek, and they're not, Star Wars isn't Star Wars. Nobody's staying true to the source materials on any of these. So Bob, you're trying to deflect some blame here, but you're really not doing leadership here. This is damage control, and it's very minor damage control. Kathleen Kennedy has been seen for months. The rumor is she's gone. I think that rumor is true. I also think that Roundhead Rian Johnson is gone. This is just the start of it. There'll be a little bit. There'll be other things because ESPN's bleeding money. They've fired a lot. They've had to lay off a lot of people. They've had a lot of problems. I know the NFL has problems too, but this is all Disney. It all gets back to Bob and Disneyifying everything. So, all right. Well, thanks, Bob. Maybe next time you'll give us some better info and actually take the real blame and be a real leader. Bye.